church doors slammed and the air jumped, a sharp clap riding the marble aisle like a thrown stone. Cade lifted his chin, the groom's smile practiced and cruel, whispering to his gleaming bride, "Wait till you see how pathetic she looks." Laughter nearby trembled into compliance. Chandeliers tremored, crystals tinkling like crushed ice. Imani Mercer stepped inside in midnight silk, not a seam out of place, the light finding diamonds at her ears and the calm at her mouth. Behind her moved 3 small storms, children with his father's jawline, his exact gaze, their hands braided with hers. Silence gathered. The organist missed a note. The mistake hung above the pews like a moth trapped in glass. The bride, Vienna, pinched Cade's wrist through lace. "Who are they?" she asked, barely moving her lips. "Decor," he said. A warning, yet he tasted metal in his throat. Imani's heels rode a metronome across the aisle. Old ladies leaned forward. Photographers pivoted like sunflowers. A murmur skated the nave, an incoming tide. Imani did not hurry. She claimed each second like land, as if no one had ever taken anything from her. "Good morning," she told the pastor, warm as tea. He blinked, recognizing a face once familiar from collection plates and late prayers. They had called her poor when Cade left, laughed at her careful coupons and thrift suits, the charity that substituted for respect. She met their stares, then glanced at her sons and daughter. "Remember," she whispered, back straight, eyes kind. No apologies for existing. They nodded. 3 echoes trained by a mother who had negotiated with landlords, lightning, and hunger. The Rolls-Royce outside ticked as its engine cooled, a quiet clock counting the end of Cade's performance. "Imani," the pastor murmured. "What?" "Congratulations," she said, and her smile didn't tremble. She faced the congregation, every necklace bright as a little sun. "I was invited," she announced. "And I brought witnesses." Her children lifted their chins. Cade felt the floor tilt a degree. He had rehearsed this day for months. The cut suit, the new heiress bride, the gallery of partners who loved his rising valuation. His company, Kingdom Vault, was almost public. Vienna's father would bring the banks. The optics would be cathedral clean. Then he had written her, the ex who wouldn't beg anymore, to sit at the back and remember her place. Now those optics bled. Imani remembered the last night of their marriage. Rain hurling itself at the window. A refrigerator humming an empty note. Cade packing ambition into boxes while she packed bottles and baby socks. "You slow me down," he'd said. "Someday you'll thank me." He didn't know how hard Thankless could grind. She built a fintech from midnight spreadsheets and nap-time calls, learning to read term sheets the way nurses read pulses. She sold microinsurance on phones in neighborhoods banks forgot. She failed, pivoted, and learned what refused to break. When it finally worked, it worked like lightning choosing her. "We won't stay," Imani told the pastor now. "Just a minute." Vienna found her voice. "Security," she called, brittle as sugar glass. No one moved. Everyone wanted the next line. Imani turned to Cade. "You invited me to disgrace me," she said, "but you forgot the math." She touched each child's shoulder. 3. The ushers exhaled as if surfacing. Cade tried a laugh that snagged his throat. "Not mine," he began. The congregation tasted scandal like salt on the tongue. "Your eyes, your dimples, your stubborn chin," she said. "And if genetics bore you, I brought paperwork." A courier stepped from the aisle edge, as if the moment had been rehearsed, handing over a cream envelope whose weight promised attorneys. "I didn't come for revenge," Imani said, voice steady. "I came for truth. You asked for an audience." A few guests glanced toward the doors, calculating exits. Vienna's father frowned, a banker sniffing smoke. "This is improper," he pronounced. "It is necessary," Imani answered, "because vows require honesty, and investors require disclosures." Cade shifted, heat gathering under his collar. He had always underestimated the woman who built warmth out of winter. The triplets watched him like jurors waiting. She could have explained everything then. The dates, the tests, the months when he skipped payments but not parties. Instead, she let the room do the math, humming with electricity from the chandelier to the exit sign. "If you want the end," she said, "stay with me, because what happens next will change everything." Heads tilted, the entire church suddenly an algorithm hooked by curiosity. She placed the envelope on the altar as an offering. "Cade, I built something. she continued. I built it while you were building yourself. The difference is mine feeds people. He flinched, though she smiled. You always wanted a crowd, Imani said. So listen. Her son, Asa, stepped forward, untucking a folded program. Mr. Mercer, he said, voice steady with the caution of a boy who had learned to measure storms. Do you deny that you are our father? This is absurd, Cade replied, but his pupils betrayed thunder. The younger son, Judah, added, You taught us something anyway. You taught us what not to become. Laughter cracked somewhere, quickly muffled. The daughter, Lila, took Imani's hand. Mama said justice can be soft, she whispered. Today it's velvet. Eyes shone. Cade stared at velvet and saw a noose. Vienna tugged his sleeve. Fix this, she hissed, or we're finished. He thought of term sheets trembling, of headlines that baked like desert sun. He imagined his board watching the live stream one of the bridesmaids had started. Imani, he said, you've made your point. Take the hush money you always wanted and leave. A few gasped as if slapped. Imani laughed, quiet and warm, a sound like a stove kindling. You still don't understand, she answered. I'm not here to be paid. I'm here to confirm what I've already earned. The pastor found his courage. The pastor's voice creaked like an old oak catching wind. Perhaps we should, but he faltered under the congregation's hunger. Nobody wanted him to close the curtain. They wanted the drama. The blood of truth poured straight onto marble. Imani placed a steadying hand on her daughter's shoulder, a gesture so soft it silenced the whispers more effectively than any gavel. Pastor, she said gently, don't stop the truth. Isn't that what these walls were built for? His mouth opened, then closed. He stepped aside. Authority, after all, had just shifted into her orbit. Cade's breath sharpened, nostrils flaring like a man underwater. He remembered the little one-bedroom they once shared, the smell of boiled rice, the lamp buzzing because they couldn't afford another bulb. He had convinced himself he had outgrown her, yet here she stood, polished, formidable. No trace of the woman who used to rub her temples over overdue bills. He whispered to Vienna, she's bluffing. She doesn't have proof. But Vienna's father was already moving, approaching the altar with banker's suspicion. He plucked the cream envelope, slid it open with a manicured nail, and scanned. His brows folded into thunder. These, he said coldly, are certified DNA results, legally notarized. They place your probability of paternity at 99.98%. Care to explain? The room broke into 1,000 murmurs, the echo of judgment ricocheting like marbles across stone. Cade felt his tongue stick to the roof of his mouth. Forgery, he spat, but too quickly. The banker shook his head. The seal is intact. This is no forgery. He handed the papers to Vienna, who read and paled, her veil trembling like a net about to snap. You promised me, she whispered to Cade. You swore you had no ties. Imani met her gaze, not with cruelty, but with compassion so sharp it cut. You deserve truth, Vienna. As a woman, you deserve not to be deceived. Vienna's lip quivered. She turned, but her father gripped her elbow. Finish this, he said, or we lose face. Yet the room knew face was already gone. Guests shifted, pulling phones to record. Scandal was a currency, and everyone wanted their share. The triplets stood steady, eyes locked on their father. Say it, Asa commanded. Say you left us. Cade's hands trembled. I didn't know. He lied. Judah barked a bitter laugh. You knew. You paid 2 months of child support, then vanished. You knew. Gasps spread again. Someone whispered, Hypocrite, the word catching flame until it flickered from pew to pew. Imani raised her hand. Enough, she said, and miraculously the sound dropped like curtains falling. She was not here to destroy indiscriminately. Listen, she continued, her voice a current carrying everyone forward. When he left, I had nothing, not even diapers for these babies. But I learned nothing is not the end. Nothing is the beginning. She paused, letting silence crown her words. From that nothing, I built a company. Cade scoffed, trying to regain footing. A hustle on the side doesn't make you a CEO, she cut in. Her smile was blade clean. Actually, yes. My fintech firm, Safeline, now insures over 5 million underserved families. We closed our Series C round last quarter. The banker froze. He knew the name. The The congregation buzzed with awe. Safeline? Someone echoed. I read about them in Forbes. Imani nodded. So you see, Cade, you didn't trade up when you abandoned me. You traded down. Because while you bought suits and speeches, I built something that will outlive both of us. Vienna staggered back, veil slipping. You're richer than him? She breathed. Not richer, Imani corrected, though her eyes burned bright. More rooted, more real. The triplets stood taller. For the first time, the guests weren't staring at them with curiosity or pity. They stared with respect. A reversal had bloomed, slow as dawn, undeniable as noon. Cade tried to roar. Lies! But his voice cracked, more squeak than thunder. He saw investors in the crowd checking their phones, already recalculating risk. He saw a bridesmaid posting a live stream, comments flooding in by the hundreds. She's the real queen. Plot twist. You wanted to humiliate me, Imani said softly. But humility is not humiliation. I learned humility in hunger, in scraping together futures from scraps. Humiliation belongs to the one who lies. She looked at the pastor. This wedding cannot proceed. Not until truth is spoken aloud. The pastor nodded reluctantly. Cade Mercer, he intoned. Do you acknowledge these children as your own? Cade's lips trembled. He saw everything slipping. His new marriage, his business deal, the clean image he had cultivated. But if he denied, the papers spoke louder than him. If he admitted, his empire bled. He chose silence. The silence was worse than denial. It was cowardice on public display. Vienna's father slammed the papers onto the altar. The merger is off, he growled. My daughter will not bind herself to a liar who conceals heirs. Vienna wept quietly, mascara carving rivers down her face. Cade reached for her, but she flinched, retreating into her father's shadow. The church swayed with whispers, judgment, phones recording every second. And in that swirl of chaos, Imani turned to her children. This is enough, she murmured. We have shown them. They nodded, relief flickering across their faces. But then, wait, cried an investor from the third pew, standing so abruptly his cufflinks rattled. Imani Mercer, are you open to partnerships? Safeline aligns perfectly with our ESG portfolio. We've been searching for a visionary. All heads swiveled. Imani blinked, momentarily startled, then recovered. Yes, she said. I am open, but only with those who believe in integrity. The investor nodded eagerly. Applause threatened to bloom, though some guests suppressed it. The power had shifted entirely. Cade felt like a man drowning in light, his carefully built illusion disintegrating under the cathedral's stained glass gaze. As the pastor struggled to contain order, Imani prepared to leave, but just before she turned, she delivered the line that scorched itself into memory. You thought today was your coronation, Cade, but it was always my vindication. And this, she gestured to the children, to the crowd, to the truth, is only chapter 1. The crowd erupted, a tide of whispers, applause, gasps. Phones lit like constellations. And somewhere inside, Cade realized the worst truth of all. His ex-wife had not come to beg. She had come to ascend. Outside the cathedral, sunlight cracked through the clouds as if the sky itself wanted witness. The Rolls-Royce still idled at the curb, black paint gleaming like oil on water, its chrome spirit guiding eyes toward inevitability. The crowd spilled out, conversations buzzing louder than the bells. Reporters who hadn't even been invited shoved microphones into the air, their voices sharp with questions. Ms. Mercer, is it true you're the CEO of Safeline? Will you be taking legal action against Mr. Mercer? Who are the children's guardians? The words ricocheted, a hailstorm of curiosity. Imani didn't rush. She moved with the patience of a river, ushering her children through the tide of cameras. Stay close, she whispered. Lila clutched her mother's arm, Asa and Judah flanking with protective seriousness. The chauffeur held the door open, but before they could enter, another voice sliced through. Imani Mercer! A gray-haired woman in a navy suit elbowed forward, her face recognizable from magazine covers. Helena Cray, one of the city's most feared venture capitalists. She carried an aura of cold skyscrapers and boardrooms that never slept. You impressed me inside, Helena said. Your poise, your company. Let's talk. Imani hesitated, the roar of paparazzi circling like wolves. She glanced at her children. "My first duty is to them," she answered firmly. Helena's lips curved. "Exactly. That's why you're the leader this market needs." She handed over a card embossed with gold edges. "Call me when you're ready. Or better yet, I'll call you." Safeline deserves global reach. Gasps swam through the crowd. An endorsement from Helena Cray was no small thing. Imani accepted the card but tucked it away. She wasn't ready to display hunger. She would not mirror Cade's endless thirst. Meanwhile, Cade stumbled out of the cathedral, chased by shouts. His tie hung loose. His smile cracked porcelain. Vienna refused his arm, her father storming toward a waiting limousine. Reporters swarmed him too. "Mr. Mercer, is it true you abandoned your children? Will your IPO still launch? Did you conceal heirs from your board?" Each question struck like stone. He shoved past them, shouting, "No comment." But cameras fed mercilessly, documenting his unraveling. His once perfect wedding collapsed into footage destined to trend by nightfall. Imani watched from the curb, her reflection mirrored in the Rolls-Royce window. For years she had dreamed of seeing Cade brought low, but the sight did not give her triumph. Instead, it gave her clarity. Revenge was a shallow meal. Legacy, on the other hand, could feed generations. She kissed her daughter's hair. "We're going home." But as she turned, another barrier rose. Journalists blocking the car door, clamoring for sound bites. She sighed. Then Asa spoke up. "Mama, let me." Before she could object, he faced the microphones. "My name is Asa Mercer," he said, voice small but fierce. "My mother raised us without him. She taught us never to lie. So if you want to know who my father is, he's the man inside that church who couldn't answer a simple question. And if you want to know who my hero is, it's her." The words pierced deeper than any scandal. Cameras flashed, shutters stuttering like applause. Judah added, "She built Safeline for people like us, so other kids wouldn't have to grow up afraid." Lila gripped Imani's hand, whispering, "Now they know." Imani's chest swelled with conflicting emotions. Pride and fear interlaced. The world could be cruel to children in the spotlight, yet their truth carried such weight, it couldn't be ignored. She stepped in, wrapping an arm around all three. "Enough for today," she declared. "Questions will be answered in time. For now, we're going to live our lives." She guided them into the car at last. Doors closed, glass dimming the chaos outside. Inside, silence reigned, only the steady hum of the engine. But silence never lasts. Judah broke it first. "Mama, what happens now?" Imani leaned back, diamonds winking faintly in the filtered sunlight. "Now we prepare," she said. What happened today wasn't the end. It was the spark. She thought of Helena Cray's card burning in her pocket, of the investors' hungry eyes, of the power shifting. She also thought of the dangers. Cade wasn't the kind of man to drown quietly. He would thrash, claw, and drag whoever he could down with him. We must be ready for his counterattack. At that very moment across the street, Cade fumed inside his limousine, pounding the leather seat with his fist. "She humiliated me," he snarled. Vienna sat stone-faced, arms folded. Her father simply scrolled through his phone, already erasing Cade from his mental ledger. "She's going to destroy me," Cade shouted. "Unless I destroy her first." He barked at his aide through the intercom. "Get me everything on Safeline. Competitors, weaknesses, scandals. I don't care if you have to invent them. I'll bury her before she buries me." His eyes gleamed with desperation, and desperation was always dangerous. Back in the Rolls-Royce, Imani's phone buzzed. An unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. A measured voice spoke. "Ms. Mercer? This is Dr. Aisha Ford from the Global Health Fund. We saw what happened today. Safeline aligns with our mission. We'd like to meet, soon." Imani blinked, her mind racing. "I appreciate the offer," she said carefully, "but let's wait until tomorrow." She ended the call, resting the phone on her lap. Opportunity was arriving faster than she could process. Lila touched her hand. "Mama, does this mean we won?" Imani smiled faintly. "Winning isn't one moment, sweetheart. It's what you do with all the moments after. And right now, it means rest." She closed her eyes, letting the hum of the rolls carry her toward the next chapter. Yet deep down, she knew Today had only drawn the battle lines. The war for legacy, hers, Cade's, their children's, had just begun. The smear campaign began before the Rolls-Royce even reached Imani's driveway. By nightfall, tabloids were spinning headlines like poisoned webs. Safeline CEO hides secret children. Charity queen or master manipulator. Ex-wife crashes wedding and Rolls-Royce drama. Cade's PR team worked overtime, feeding whispers to journalists that she had trapped him, that the children might not even be his, that her company exploited the poor instead of uplifting them. Lies traveled fast, faster than facts, faster than dignity. Imani sat in her living room with her children asleep upstairs, the glow of her laptop painting her face. Screens filled with venom, comment sections where strangers debated her worth like a stock price. She closed the lid gently, refusing to let her kids wake to find her crying. She had not survived storms only to drown in raindrops. Still, a knot pulsed in her chest. This is how he fights, she whispered to herself. When he can't win with truth, he wages war with shadows. The doorbell rang. Midnight. Her muscles tensed. She walked to the door barefoot, each step cautious. Through the peephole she saw Helena Cray again, flanked by 2 aides in dark suits. Imani opened the door but didn't invite her in. "You don't sleep?" Imani asked. Helena smiled. Wolfish. "Not when opportunity knocks, or when threats slither. You've been targeted, Ms. Mercer. Your ex is pouring gasoline on the press, but that's good for us, because nothing sells better than controversy, if you control the narrative." Imani folded her arms. "And you want to control it for me?" "I want to amplify you," Helena replied. With the right campaign, Safeline becomes not just a company, but a movement. You become the face of resilience, of truth against corruption. Your stock doubles, your influence triples. She leaned in. "But you need allies with sharp teeth. Cade has bankers and lobbyists. You need wolves who bite harder." Imani studied her. For years she had fought alone, guided only by grit and faith. But now the battlefield was wider. "I'll consider it," she said cautiously. Helena handed her a folder. "Consider quickly, because Mercer is preparing to burn you." Then she was gone, her perfume lingering like steel and roses. The next morning, Asa woke his mother with urgent news. "Mama, turn on the TV." On every channel, Cade sat in interviews, polished again, his voice rehearsed. "I want to clear my name," he told reporters. "Those children are not mine. Ms. Mercer is exploiting my past to elevate herself. She crashed my wedding with false claims. Safeline is a house of cards, built on manipulation." The interviewer pressed him with the DNA results. He waved it off. Forgery. She staged it all. He smiled as if he owned the truth. Imani's hands curled into fists. Her children watched, eyes wide, breaths uneven. Judah muttered, "He's lying again." Lila tugged her mother's sleeve. "Mama, you won't let them believe him, right?" Imani crouched to their level. "People will believe what they want, baby. But we have something stronger than belief. We have proof, and we have character. That's what wins in the long run." Her words were steady, though her stomach burned. Later that afternoon, her phone rang again. It was Dr. Aisha Ford. "Imani, the smear campaign is spreading. If you don't respond, investors may pull back. You need to go public." Imani exhaled, pacing her kitchen. "I'm not a showman like him. I built Safeline to serve, not to brand myself." Aisha's tone sharpened. "But leadership requires visibility. If you hide, you'll lose everything you built. This is bigger than you now. It's about everyone who depends on Safeline." The words struck deep. A leader doesn't choose her battlefield. Sometimes it chooses her. That evening, Imani made her decision. She called Helena Cray. "I'll speak, but on my terms. No spin, no lies." Helena's voice purred approval. "Good. Tomorrow we arrange a press conference." The following day, sunlight flooded the city plaza where reporters clustered, cameras armed. The crowd was larger than expected. Citizens, Safeline clients, even influencers hungry for spectacle. At the podium, Imani adjusted the microphone. Her triplets stood beside her, not as pawns, but as proof. The murmur hushed. She began, voice strong. "For years I was silent while falsehoods defined me. That ends today. The man you saw yesterday is indeed the father of my children. I never sought to expose him. I came to a wedding only because I was invited. Gasps. She let them ripple, then continued. But when lies spread, truth must answer. I have DNA evidence. I have financial records of unpaid support. But beyond documents, I have what matters most. 3 children who stand before you. They are not fabrications. They are not scandals. They are human beings deserving acknowledgement. She placed a hand on Ace's shoulder. His chin rose higher. As for Safeline, let me be clear. This company is not built on manipulation. It is built on survival. On mothers who sell meals to pay hospital bills. On fathers who walk miles for medicine. Safeline gives them security. If anyone doubts, come visit our clinics. Speak to our clients. Look them in the eye. The crowd erupted into applause. Some journalists shouted follow-up questions, but for the first time the tide was with her. Cameras captured her dignity, her children's resolve, her refusal to bow, and as the applause swelled, she knew Cade was watching somewhere, seething. She looked directly into the nearest camera. He thought disgrace would end me, but what he began has only made me stronger. And to those listening, this is not my ending. It is my rising. The plaza roared. Phones streamed live, and across town, in a penthouse office, Cade shattered a glass against the wall. If she wants war, he hissed, blood dripping from his palm. Then war she'll have. The shards of glass still glittered on the penthouse carpet when Cade summoned his inner circle. They gathered like vultures. His lawyer, his PR strategist, his CFO. The city lights burned below, but inside the air was suffocating. Cade's hand was bandaged, his rage disguised as determination. She thinks she can embarrass me into silence, he snarled. I built Kingdom Vault from dust, and no woman, least of all one I discarded, is going to tear it down. Find me dirt, anything. Her past, her finances, her mistakes. If it doesn't exist, make it exist. The lawyer cleared his throat. Careful, sir. She has momentum. Fabrications could backfire. Cade's eyes blazed. So what? Momentum is fragile. People want blood more than truth. Give them a scandal and they'll eat it. His PR man leaned forward. We could frame her as a fraud. She rose too fast. There must be cracks. We can paint Safeline as unstable, built on sympathy rather than sound finance. Highlight every loan default, every rejected application. Rebrand her as reckless. Cade slammed the table. Do it. Break her halo. Meanwhile, across town, Imani sat at her kitchen table, sipping tea that had long gone cold. Her children slept upstairs, but her mind refused rest. Headlines still scrolled through her phone, some praising her courage, others echoing Cade's lies. It was the duality of modern fame, celebrated and crucified in the same breath. She pressed her palms together, whispering a silent prayer. Lord, don't let me fight with bitterness. Let me fight with purpose. The phone buzzed. Helena Cray again. Imani, her crisp voice declared. The war has begun. He's feeding stories to the press. You need to get ahead of it. Imani's instinct was resistance. I won't play his game. Helena chuckled coldly. Then you'll lose. Don't misunderstand me. You're a force. But in war, silence is surrender. You must define yourself before he defines you. Imani rubbed her temples, torn. She wanted to shield her children from the ugliness, but the ugliness was already at their doorstep. She remembered Asa's trembling voice at the podium, Judah's defiant glare, Lila's small hand gripping hers. They deserved more than survival. They deserved victory. The next morning, the smear campaign arrived in full. Tabloids blared, Safeline's shaky finances, insolvency looming. Ex-wife turned CEO. Did she manipulate investors with her children's story? Talk shows debated her character. Clips of Cade circulated, polished and persuasive, calling her vindictive and unstable. The lies spread like ink in water. At Safeline's headquarters, anxious employees whispered in corridors. Donors sent nervous emails. Some investors paused funding. A storm was gathering, and it threatened to sink not just Imani, but the thousands who relied on Safeline. Imani convened her leadership team in the glass-walled conference room. They looked at her with questions heavy in their eyes. She stood at the head of the table, her posture steady. I know what's being said, she began. But Safeline was never built on gossip. It was built on trust. on people who believed when no one else would. That's why we're still here. And that's why we'll survive this. We don't fight with mud. We fight with results. Her CFO, a young man named Daniel, frowned. But perception shapes markets. If investors panic, then we show them, she interrupted. We open our books. We prove every number. Transparency will be our sword. Her team exchanged glances. Radical honesty in business could be risky, but in Imani's hands, it felt like a weapon forged from truth. That evening, Safeline released a detailed financial report online, free for anyone to read. It showcased profitability, growth, and audited data. It was an unorthodox move, but it caught fire. Clients praised the transparency. Journalists applauded the boldness. For a moment, it seemed Imani had neutralized Cade's attack. But Cade wasn't finished. A week later, a story broke that hit harder. Safeline founder's dark past, evictions, debt, and food stamps. Reporters dug into Imani's history. Old court filings, eviction notices, photos of her standing outside a soup kitchen with toddlers in tow. They framed her poverty not as resilience, but as shame. On morning television, pundits sneered, "Do we really want someone with that kind of history running millions in capital?" The cruelty sliced deep. At breakfast, Asa slammed the paper onto the table. "Why are they attacking you for surviving?" he demanded, his young voice shaking with fury. Judah added, "They make it sound dirty, like needing help was your fault." Imani reached for their hands, her own trembling but firm. "Listen to me," she said. "Yes, I stood in food stamp lines. Yes, we were evicted. Yes, we lived on scraps. That's not disgrace. That's life. And it's exactly why I fight. For families like ours, they want to turn scars into shame. But scars are proof we healed." Her words calmed them, but inside, fear gnawed. The smear was working. Stockholders were jittery. Journalists torn between narratives. She needed a decisive counterstrike. That evening, Helena called again. "Use it," Helena insisted. "Lean into your past. Show them your scars are your strength. Don't let him weaponize poverty against you." Imani sat in silence, heart heavy. Then she made her choice. She scheduled a televised interview. When the cameras rolled, she didn't sit in a glossy studio. Instead, she chose the old apartment complex where she once lived, the one where she had struggled to feed 3 babies. She stood in front of its peeling paint, pointing at the very steps she had cried on. "Yes," she told the nation, "I was evicted. I collected food stamps. I was poor. But poverty is not a crime. It is a crucible. And from it, I built Safeline. Not in spite of my scars, but because of them." The raw honesty stunned viewers. Instead of weakness, they saw resilience. Instead of shame, they saw triumph. Social media exploded with hashtags. Scars to strength, Imani Mercer truth. Mothers posted their own stories of survival. Fathers praised her courage. Her past, once weaponized, became her crown. Across town, Cade threw a chair at the screen. His attempt to bury her had only made her stronger. "She won't stop," he muttered. His aide whispered nervously, "Sir, the board is asking questions. Investors are restless." Cade's jaw tightened. "Then I'll find a different weapon. If I can't break her image, I'll break her company." He picked up the phone, calling an old contact in politics. "I need Safeline investigated. Find a way. Regulations, audits, whatever. If she wants war, I'll scorch the earth." And so, the battlefield shifted once again, from the court of public opinion to the cold machinery of law. The letter arrived on a Monday morning, crisp and cold as winter steel. It bore the seal of the Financial Regulatory Commission. Imani's assistant rushed into her office, pale-faced, holding the envelope as if it were a bomb. "It's an audit order," she whispered. Imani slid it open with calm hands, though her pulse hammered. The government was demanding full access to Safeline's accounts, partnerships, and client records. Investigations like this could drag on for months, sometimes years, and even a whiff of impropriety could sink investor confidence. Imani closed her eyes briefly. She knew whose fingerprints were on this. Cade. He had weaponized bureaucracy against her. She laid the letter on her desk, smoothing the paper with steady fingers. "Tell the team," she said. "We'll cooperate. We have nothing to hide." Her assistant hesitated. But audits, they find things even when you've done nothing wrong. Technicalities, mistakes. This could ruin us. Imani looked up, her gaze firm. Then we'll make sure it doesn't. That night, the triplets found her working at the dining table, papers spread like battle plans. Asa leaned on the chair. Mama, you're not scared? She smiled faintly. Of course I am. But courage isn't the absence of fear. It's choosing to move anyway. Judah frowned. But what if they lie again? What if they twist things? Imani pulled him close. Then we tell the truth louder. Always louder. Meanwhile, across the city, Cade celebrated in his penthouse. A cigar glowed in his hand, smoke curling like a victory flag. The regulators are in. Soon she'll be tangled in red tape, bleeding money. His aide grinned nervously. Brilliant, sir. But Vienna, sitting stiff in the corner, finally spoke. Her marriage was dead in everything but law, yet she lingered in his orbit out of obligation. Do you even hear yourself? She asked. You're not defending your business. You're obsessed with destroying her. Cade exhaled smoke, sneering. She embarrassed me, in public, in front of everyone. I'll erase her. Vienna shook her head. No, you'll erase yourself. Back at Safeline, the audit began. Teams of government officials swarmed through hallways, their suits sharp, their eyes sharper. They requested files, interrogated staff, combed through every transaction. Employees whispered anxiously, the atmosphere thick with suspicion. Imani gathered them in the atrium. I know this is frightening, she told them, her voice carrying over the hum of computers. But let's remember, our work saves lives. We have nothing to fear from light. Every record, every decision, we will show openly. Transparency will protect us. Slowly, nods spread through the room. They would follow her lead. But the pressure mounted. One night, Imani sat with Helena Cray in a quiet rooftop bar. The city sparkled beneath them, indifferent to her storm. They'll try to trap you, Helena warned. Even a minor compliance error can be twisted into scandal. Are you prepared for that? Imani sipped water, her resolve hard as stone. If mistakes exist, I'll own them. But I won't let him turn my honesty into weakness. Helena's eyes glinted. Good, because power doesn't come from perfection. It comes from surviving imperfection. The next morning, headlines blared. Safeline under investigation. Investors panicked. Shares dipped. Opponents smelled blood. And Cade seized the moment, holding a press conference in a gleaming boardroom. This confirms what I've been saying, he declared smoothly. Safeline is not what it claims to be. Its so-called transparency was a smokescreen. Regulators don't investigate saints. They investigate criminals. Reporters scribbled. Cameras whirred. He was confident. Too confident. Believing his performance flawless. But Imani struck back. She called her own press conference. Not in a boardroom, but in a Safeline clinic. Families filled the backdrop. Mothers holding babies. Fathers clutching policy cards. Children laughing with nurses. She stood among them. No podium. Just presence. Yes, we are being audited, she said simply. And I welcome it. Because Safeline has nothing to hide. While others spend energy smearing me, I spend mine here, making sure families can sleep at night, knowing illness won't bankrupt them. She lifted a folder. And when the audit concludes, it will show what we already know, that our work is honest, our impact real. The crowd responded with applause. Clients stepped forward to testify, one by one. A father spoke of how Safeline had covered his son's surgery. A mother described finally being able to afford medication. Their stories drowned out suspicion. By the end, the press conference felt less like defense and more like revival. The narrative shifted. Imani Mercer fights back, with truth and community behind her. But Cade wasn't finished. Late one evening, he met with a shadowy figure in a dim restaurant booth. What do you want me to find? The man asked, voice low. Anything, Cade growled. Skeletons, secrets, something from her past. She can't be this clean. Everyone has dirt. Find it, and I'll make you rich. The man nodded, slipping into the shadows. Cade leaned back, satisfied. She thinks transparency protects her. She forgets. Truth can be twisted too. Back home, Imani tucked her children into bed. Lila whispered, Mama, is it almost over? Imani kissed her forehead. Not yet, baby, but soon. She turned off the light, heart heavy with unspoken doubts. She had faced hunger, abandonment, and shame. But this was bigger. Cade wasn't just fighting to protect his ego anymore. He was fighting to annihilate her. As she sat alone in the dark, her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "We know something about Cade. Meet me tomorrow. Alone." Imani stared at the screen, unease twisting in her stomach. Was it a trap? Or the key to ending this war once and for all? The message burned on Imani's phone long after midnight, its glow like a match in darkness. "We know something about Cade. Meet me tomorrow. Alone." She reread it a dozen times, weighing risk against possibility. Traps were Cade's specialty, but truth had strange ways of surfacing. If there was even a chance this informant held something real, she couldn't ignore it. She deleted the text, memorizing the location. A small cafe on the edge of the financial district. At dawn, she rose quietly, slipping past her sleeping children. She left a note on the fridge. "Morning meeting. Be brave. Back soon." "Mama." Her Rolls-Royce driver raised an eyebrow at the address, but asked no questions. The city was just waking as they pulled up to the cafe, sunlight bouncing off skyscrapers like shards of glass. She entered alone, as instructed. The cafe smelled of roasted beans and faint mildew. Only 3 tables were occupied. A pair of students hunched over laptops, an elderly man with a newspaper, and in the corner, a woman in a gray trench coat. Her posture was military straight, eyes sharp beneath dark lashes. She gestured Imani over. "Ms. Mercer." Imani slid into the booth. "You sent the text?" The woman nodded. "Name's Marlene Ortiz. I used to work for Cade, compliance officer at Kingdom Vault, until I learned too much." Her voice was low but steady. "He's not just greedy, he's dangerous. He launders money through shell companies, bribes officials, hides losses from his investors. I tried to report it. He buried me with non-disclosures and threats." Imani's pulse quickened. If this was true, Cade wasn't just immoral. He was criminal. "Why come to me?" she asked cautiously. Marlene leaned closer. "Because he's obsessed with destroying you. That obsession will undo him, if you have the courage to expose what I know." She slid a flash drive across the table. Proof, bank transfers, emails, internal audits, enough to bury him. Imani didn't reach for it immediately. "And what do you want in return?" Marlene's eyes softened briefly. "Justice. He ruined my career, my reputation. I want the world to see him for what he is." Before Imani could answer, the bell above the cafe door jingled. 2 men in dark suits entered, scanning the room. Marlene stiffened. "His people," she hissed. "Go, now." Imani palmed the flash drive, sliding it into her clutch. She stood calmly, heart thudding. "Thank you," she whispered. Then she strode out, shoulders squared, pretending to be unbothered. Behind her, the men closed in on Marlene. Imani's last glimpse was of her standing tall, defiant. In the rolls, she exhaled shakily. Her driver glanced back. "Everything all right, ma'am?" "Just drive," she said. She clutched her bag like a lifeline. If this evidence was real, it could change everything, but it could also put her in danger. Cade would not let anyone live who held the knife that could cut his empire's throat. That evening, she gathered Helena Cray and Dr. Aisha Ford in her office. She placed the flash drive on the table. This could expose him, or it could be a trap. "I need verification." Helena smirked. "Leave that to me. If it's real, we'll weaponize it." Aisha frowned. "Be careful. If you go nuclear, it won't just end him. It could drag you into endless trials. Do you want war, Imani, or do you want peace?" Imani looked at her children's framed photo on the desk. "I want safety, for them, and for every family depending on Safeline. If he's laundering money, he's not just hurting me, he's hurting communities. I won't be silent." Over the next week, Helena's team verified the files. Emails detailed Cade's schemes, hidden debts, fake invoices, bribes, transactions linked to offshore accounts. It was damning. When Helena handed Imani the verified report, her eyes glittered. "With this, you don't just defend yourself, you bury him alive." But Imani hesitated. Releasing it would ignite chaos. Kingdom Vault would implode, jobs lost, shareholders wrecked. She wasn't sure if she wanted to be the executioner. That night, she prayed, asking for guidance. She dreamed of her children's faces, of clients holding insurance cards like shields against despair. In her dream, she heard her late grandmother's voice. Truth is never the enemy. Lies are. The decision crystallized. She would act. She called a press conference at City Hall. The room swelled with reporters, cameras, anticipation. Cade himself arrived, flanked by his lawyers, smirking as though certain she would falter. Imani stepped to the podium. Her voice rang clear. For weeks, lies have been spread about me and my company. Today, I present truth, not just about myself, but about the man who has sought to destroy me. She lifted the flash drive. Inside this device are records proving Kingdom Vault has engaged in fraud, bribery, and money laundering. I am submitting this evidence to federal authorities, and I do so publicly because sunlight is the best disinfectant. Gasps rippled through the hall. Cade lunged forward, shouting, "She's fabricating this! She's insane!" But reporters swarmed, shoving microphones, demanding answers. Federal agents in the back of the room moved forward, confiscating the drive. The cameras caught everything. Cade's red face, his sputtering denial, the quiet poise of Imani standing firm. That night, headlines lit up. Safeline CEO strikes back. Evidence of Kingdom Vault fraud turned over to authorities. Stock markets wobbled. Kingdom Vault's shares plummeted. Investors abandoned Cade in droves. His empire trembled. But Imani knew one thing. Cornered men were dangerous. And Cade Mercer, stripped of his empire, was about to become more dangerous than ever. Cade's empire collapsed with terrifying speed. Within 48 hours of Imani's press conference, Kingdom Vault shares lost half their value. The financial press branded it the fall of a titan, and regulators announced a formal investigation. Board members resigned publicly to save their own names. Vienna's father severed all ties, calling Cade an unfit partner in business and in family. The man who once smirked from magazine covers now found his face splashed across headlines with words like fraud and liar. But humiliation did not crush him. It ignited something darker. In the penthouse, he hadn't yet surrendered. He raged through rooms, smashing glasses and tearing photographs from the walls. "She did this to me," he muttered, pacing like a beast in a cage. "She stole my crown." His lawyer advised cooperation with investigators. "If you hand over partial records—" "No!" Cade barked, veins bulging. "I don't hand over anything, I fight. And if I can't fight in boardrooms, I'll fight in the streets." Imani sensed the shift. Her phone filled with threats, anonymous numbers calling her a fraud, warning her to watch your back. One evening, as she drove home with the children, she noticed headlights tailing them through 3 turns. Her driver swerved into a police station parking lot. The car behind sped off. Her stomach tightened. Cade was moving from reputation wars to personal vendettas. She met with Helena and Aisha the next morning. "He's unraveling," Imani said, "which makes him dangerous." Helena leaned back, arms crossed. "That's why you need security, bodyguards, panic systems. He won't go down quietly." Aisha added gently, "But don't let fear rule you. Your children need to see strength, not paranoia." Imani nodded, though fear coiled inside her like a hidden snake. She had fought hunger and bureaucracy, but this was different. This was a man with nothing left to lose. 2 days later, proof arrived. Her COO rushed into her office, breathless. "Someone broke into our servers. Attempted breach at 3 a.m. Imani froze. "Was data stolen?" "Not yet. Our firewalls held. But it was targeted. Sophisticated." The implication was clear. Cade was trying to sabotage Safeline at its core. She clenched her jaw. Strengthen defenses. Double encryption. Assume he'll try again. That night, she couldn't sleep. She walked quietly into her children's room, watching them breathe peacefully. Asa sprawled across the bed, Judah curled in a ball, Lila hugging a stuffed bear. Innocence, still intact. She whispered, "I will not let him touch you." She sat there until dawn, guarding them like a sentinel. Meanwhile, Cade met with his last loyal fixer in a dim warehouse on the city's edge. "I want leverage," Cade growled. "If I can't ruin her company, I'll ruin her life. Find something. A scandal, a weakness. Better yet, scare her. Show her she's not untouchable." The fixer hesitated. "You mean intimidation?" Cade's eyes glinted. "I mean whatever it takes. Within days, small disturbances began. A brick thrown through Imani's office window. A threatening note slipped under her door. "Step down, or your children will pay." Her security team tightened perimeters, but dread seeped into her bones. She knew Cade's ego had mutated into obsession. He wasn't strategizing anymore. He was hunting, yet she refused to cower. At a Safeline gala already scheduled months before, she appeared in a silver gown, the triplets dressed proudly beside her. Cameras flashed, and she raised a glass. "Fear will not silence truth," she declared. The audience cheered, the children smiling nervously. But even as applause swelled, she scanned the crowd, half expecting Cade's shadow. He was indeed watching. From across the street, in a black car, eyes burning through tinted glass. Seeing her radiant, unbroken, surrounded by allies only deepened his fury. "She thinks she's won," he whispered to himself. "She hasn't even seen me fight yet." His hand tightened around a flask, knuckles white. Back at the gala, Helena pulled Imani aside. "This is escalating. You need to make a choice. Press harder legally, or disappear until the storm passes." Imani shook her head. "If I run, he wins. If I hide, my children learn fear. No, we face him, and we finish this." Helena studied her, then gave a rare smile. "Good, because finishing him is exactly what I do best." Later that night, after the gala ended, Imani tucked her children into bed. Asa whispered, "Mama, is he going to hurt us?" Her throat tightened, but she kissed his forehead. "No, baby, because I'll protect you, and because the truth protects itself." They drifted to sleep. Alone in the living room, Imani opened her laptop. On the screen glowed a folder Helena had sent. Kingdom Vault Classified. Inside were files more damning than anything she had already revealed. Direct evidence of criminal collusion with foreign banks. Enough to end Cade permanently. Her finger hovered over the trackpad. If she released it, there would be no turning back. Cade wouldn't just lose his empire. He'd face prison. And a man like him, cornered with no escape, was capable of anything. She closed the laptop, heart pounding. The decision could wait until morning. But deep down, she knew the final battle was coming, and neither she nor Cade would leave it unchanged. The morning began deceptively ordinary. Sunlight slipped through blinds. The smell of pancakes filled the Mercer kitchen, and for a fleeting moment, Imani allowed herself to believe peace was possible. The triplets laughed, pouring syrup too generously, teasing one another as children should. But beneath that domestic warmth, her instincts hummed with unease. She checked locks twice, scanned the street from the window. She could almost feel Cade's shadow stretching toward them. Her phone buzzed at 8:14 a.m. A single text. "We warned you. Next is your children." Ice flooded her veins. She rushed to her office, clutching the phone. Her security chief, a broad man named Harris, read it and cursed under his breath. "We'll increase patrols. Move the kids under private detail. Don't take chances." Imani's voice stayed steady. "Do it quietly. They can't live in cages, but keep them safe." That afternoon, Asa was walking home from soccer practice with his teammates when a black SUV slowed beside him. A tinted window rolled down, and a man called, "Asa Mercer? Your mom sent me to pick you up." Asa's instincts sharpened. He remembered his mother's lessons. Never get into a stranger's car, no matter what they say. He sprinted back toward the coach, heart thudding. The SUV sped off, tires screeching. Within minutes, Harris informed Imani. She gripped the edge of her desk, fighting dizziness. Her son was safe, but the message was clear. Cade had crossed a line. "This isn't business anymore," she whispered. "It's war." That evening, she called Helena and Aisha to her home. Harris stood guard at the door, hand resting on his weapon. "He's targeting my children now," Imani said, voice low but fiery. Helena leaned forward. "Then stop holding back. Drop the final evidence. Put him in prison." Aisha frowned. "But that escalates everything. If he's desperate now, imagine him with nothing left to lose. He'll lash out like a cornered animal." Imani paced the living room, her children upstairs under heavy guard. "If I don't, he'll keep coming. If I do, he'll explode." She paused, looking at their photographs on the mantel. "But I didn't survive poverty, betrayal, and lies to let my children live hunted. No, I'll end this. On my terms." Meanwhile, Cade sat in a dingy motel, his penthouse long abandoned. His fixer reported failure with Asa. The boy was too quick. Next time, Cade cut him off, eyes wild. No next time. We can't just scare them. We take them. Then she'll beg. The fixer hesitated. Kidnapping's a different level. That's life in prison if... Cade slammed his fist on the table. I already face prison, so I take her joy before they take my freedom. His voice shook with madness. Even the fixer looked uneasy. Back at Safeline HQ, Imani prepared her countermove. She called a trusted journalist, one known for fearless investigative work. I'm ready to release everything, she told him. But it must be airtight, verifiable. I don't want sensationalism. I want truth. The journalist promised integrity. They scheduled the exposé for the end of the week, but time was not on her side. The very next day, as Judah and Lila walked home from school under discreet security, a second SUV appeared. This time, men jumped out fast, trying to grab. Harris's team responded instantly, tackling the attackers. Chaos erupted. Shouts, screeching tires, children screaming. Judah clutched his sister's hand, refusing to let go. By the time police arrived, the men fled, leaving only tire tracks and fear in their wake. That night, Imani held her children tightly. Judah's eyes burned with anger. He won't stop, Mama. He's a coward, Lila whispered. I don't want to be brave anymore. I just want to be safe. Imani stroked her hair. You will be, my love. I promise. But inside, her resolve hardened into steel. This was no longer about survival or reputation. This was about ending Cade once and for all. She met Helena in private later that night. Release everything, Imani ordered. Tomorrow morning, not a leak, an avalanche. Documents, audits, emails. Let the world drown in his crimes. Helena's eyes gleamed. This will bury him. Imani nodded grimly. Good, because if I don't end him, he'll end me. Or worse, my children. But even as she spoke, miles away, Cade watched news feeds in his motel, face lit by the blue glow of the screen. He saw her gala speeches replayed, her interviews trending, her image painted as resilient hero. He saw his own face caricatured as villain. His hands shook with fury. She thinks she's won, he whispered. Then he turned to his fixer. Tomorrow, before she ruins me, we ruin her. We don't wait. We take the kids. Tonight. The fixer hesitated. That's suicide. Cade's eyes blazed. So be it. If I burn her world with me. And so, as Imani tucked her children into bed, unaware of the storm outside, forces were already moving through the night. Cars without plates idled near her neighborhood. Shadows shifted in alleys. A final clash loomed, between a mother's unbreakable resolve and a desperate man's last descent into madness. The night air was thick, heavy with the kind of silence that hides a storm. Imani sat awake in the living room, sipping tea gone bitter from neglect. Harris and 2 guards patrolled the perimeter of the house, radios crackling softly. Upstairs, the triplets slept under the illusion of safety. But Imani's gut churned. Something was wrong. The kind of wrong you can't see, only feel. She set her cup down just as headlights flickered at the end of the street. Too slow for a passerby. Too dark for a neighbor. Harris's voice came over the radio. Suspicious vehicle approaching. Before Imani could respond, the sound shattered the night. Tires screeching, doors slamming, boots pounding pavement. Then, chaos. A group of masked men surged from the shadows, charging the house. Harris barked orders, his men firing warning shots into the air. Inside! Now! He shouted. But the attackers were fast, ruthless, and determined. Imani sprinted up the stairs. Her children woke in panic as she burst into their room. Mama? Leela whimpered. Imani grabbed them, her voice urgent but calm. Downstairs. Safe room. Now. Judah's eyes flared with fear and rage. It's him, isn't it? Yes, Imani said. But he will not take you. Alarms blared as Harris's men clashed with the intruders. Glass shattered downstairs. Asa helped Lila down the hallway, Judah clutching Imani's arm. They reached the reinforced safe room hidden behind the study's bookshelf. Imani pushed them inside. Stay here, no matter what. Mama, come too, Lila cried. Imani kissed her forehead. I will, but first I have to end this. She shut the steel door, locking them away. Downstairs, the front door splintered open. Cade himself stormed in, wild-eyed, a pistol in his hand. His once pristine suit was wrinkled, his hair unkempt, but his rage burned sharper than ever. "Imani," he roared. "Where are you? You think you can steal everything from me?" His men spread through the house, clashing with Harris's guards. Shots cracked, screams echoed, wood splintered. Imani stepped into the foyer, face illuminated by the flicker of broken lamps. Her voice was steady. "It's over, Cade. The police are on their way. The evidence is already with the feds. You've lost." Cade swung the pistol toward her, hands trembling. "No, I haven't lost until you're on your knees begging. Until those brats of yours are gone. Give them to me, Imani, or I burn this place down with all of us inside." His eyes were fever bright, veins pulsing. Imani took a step forward, fearless. "Listen to yourself. You're not a CEO anymore. You're not even a man. You're a coward with a gun, trying to scare the woman who already survived you." Harris burst into the foyer, aiming his weapon. "Drop it, Mercer," he barked. But Cade grabbed Imani, yanking her against his chest, gun pressed to her temple. "One move and she dies," he snarled. For a heartbeat, time froze. Harris steadied his aim, sweat dripping down his temple. Imani's breath slowed, her mind sharpening. "Cade," she whispered. "Look at me." He hesitated. "What?" "Look at me," she repeated, voice calm, steady, almost tender. His eyes flicked to hers. "Do you see it? The empire you tried to build? Gone? The family you abandoned? Thriving. The only thing left of you is this. Violence. Desperation. And I want you to know, I don't fear you anymore." Her words hit him harder than any bullet. His grip faltered, his hand shaking. In that split second, Harris lunged. The gun went off, thunder in the hall. Pain seared across Imani's arm, but she twisted free, dropping to the floor as Harris tackled Cade. The pistol skittered across marble, clattering uselessly. The two men wrestled, grunts and curses filling the room. Imani grabbed the gun, aimed, and shouted, "Enough." Cade froze, pinned beneath Harris, chest heaving. His eyes met hers. Rage, despair, and something hollow. "Go on," he spat. "Finish me." Imani's finger hovered on the trigger. She imagined every cruel word, every night of hunger, every time her children cried for the father who never came. But then she lowered the gun. "No, you don't get that power. The law will finish you." Sirens wailed outside as red and blue lights washed over the shattered house. Police stormed in, arresting Cade's men. 2 officers hauled Cade to his feet, cuffing him. He laughed bitterly. "You think you've won, Imani? The system will eat you too. They always eat us in the end." She stepped closer, her voice low and fierce. "Maybe, but if I fall, it will be fighting for something real. Not for ego, not for greed, for my children, for families like ours. And that's a fight that never loses." As they dragged him out, Cade's laughter turned to silence. The house, though broken, felt lighter. The triplets burst from the safe room, running to their mother. Lila sobbed into her arms. Judah clung tight. Asa whispered, "You did it, Mama. You ended it." Imani held them close, tears finally spilling. "No," she whispered, kissing their foreheads. "We ended it. Together." The courthouse steps were a circus. Cameras flashed, microphones lunged, and the crowd's roar rose with each headline that poured from the press. Cade Mercer, once the golden boy of finance, shuffled in shackles between 2 federal agents. His suit hung loose, his face hollow, but his arrogance still clung like a disease. "This trial is a sham," he barked to the reporters. "I'm the victim here." The crowd booed, their anger sharp and unrelenting. The world had seen too much to believe him anymore. Imani stood at a distance, her children flanking her. Asa's jaw was tight, Judah's fists clenched, Lila's hand wrapped around her mother's. They watched silently as the man who abandoned them, who tried to break them, was led inside to face justice. Imani's heart ached, not with longing, not with pity, but with a bittersweet truth. This was the father of her children, and yet he had never truly been one. The trial lasted weeks. Prosecutors unveiled evidence of fraud, money laundering, bribery. Witnesses testified, former employees, investors, even Marlene Ortiz, the compliance officer who had risked everything to expose him. When it was Imani's turn, she stood in the witness box with quiet dignity. She didn't exaggerate, didn't dramatize. She simply told the truth. Cade Mercer once had my loyalty. He had my love, but he threw both away for ambition. And when I refused to break, he tried to destroy me. But this was never about me alone. This is about every person who trusted him with their futures. Every family his greed endangered. The world deserves better. The jury needed only 2 hours. Guilty on all counts. Cade's empire was ashes. His legacy nothing but a cautionary tale. He was sentenced to 25 years in federal prison. When the judge read the verdict, Cade turned in his seat, his eyes locking on Imani. "You'll regret this," he hissed. But his voice had no weight anymore. No power. It was just another empty threat from a man whose time had ended. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed Imani. She held her children close and spoke into the sea of cameras. Justice isn't victory. It's balance. And today, balance was restored. But my story doesn't end here. Safeline is bigger than me, bigger than this trial. We will continue to serve families who need protection, dignity, and hope. That is my legacy. That is our future. The following months proved her words true. Safeline flourished under the spotlight, securing partnerships with international health organizations and expanding into new countries. The hashtag #ScarStoStrength became more than a trend. It became a movement. Survivors of hardship worldwide shared their stories, inspired by Imani's refusal to let shame define her. She spoke at universities, at global forums, even at the United Nations, where she declared, "Poverty is not failure. It is the soil from which resilience grows." At home, life settled into a rhythm. The children thrived. Asa excelled at soccer. Judah discovered a love for coding, and Lila began writing poetry that she shyly read to her mother at night. Their laughter filled the house, proof that trauma had not stolen their joy. Imani, though busier than ever, carved out evenings for them, dinners where phones stayed off, weekends filled with hikes and games. They had lost much, but gained more: unity, strength, and the unbreakable bond of truth. One evening, as the sun bled orange over the city, Imani stood on her balcony, Helena beside her. The financier raised a glass of wine. "You did it," Helena said. "You crushed him, and you built something lasting." Imani smiled softly. "No, we did it. Me, my children, my team, the families who believed." Cade thought power was control, but real power is legacy. Helena clinked her glass. "Then here's to legacy." As night settled, Imani turned her gaze skyward, whispering a prayer of gratitude. She thought of the girl she once was, the young mother in a thrift store coat, juggling bottles and bills, crying in silence while the world dismissed her. That girl would never have imagined this, standing tall, respected, free. She smiled through tears. "We made it," she whispered. And though scars remained, they were not signs of defeat. They were proof of survival, proof of victory, proof of a life rebuilt stronger than before. She kissed her children goodnight, closed the door softly, and sat at her desk. A blank page stared back at her, waiting. She picked up her pen. The story isn't over, she thought. It's only beginning.